Why? Hello and welcome everybody. Also good morning. So today I wanted to go ahead and probably give you guys the last update to the Shatter monk that I've been playing. Now I was going to post a video a few days ago, but I thought that we would have gotten the patch and then I forgot that GG's on holiday and then I came back from New Year's and then I kind of wanted to relax a little bit. Then I tried playing a witch hunter and we're not even going to go down that arc. So then I ended up coming back to my monk and anyway, here we are. This is my first Arbiter fight. He's actually really easy. The first phase is like way weaker than the Breach bosses that I've shown. It only has like 6.7 million. I think the Breach bosses have like 20 million when you're fighting the last like versions. But what I wanted to show from here is if you look, there's a setup here that people have been using for a while. It's basically a cast on shock that shoots out and triggers Eye of Winter. Now, I'm personally a big fan of not doing swaps in builds. I like to have a clean build that's kind of good for everything. It's not that I'm lazy or anything, it's just, I don't know, it just feels good to not have to like gem swap, right? I'm not really sure how else to explain it. So with that being said, I want to make a reminder that this will probably be the last video for the character, unless there's something drastic that changes. And inside this document here has everything you'll need. So it's got like the Twitch updates, the YouTube videos we've been doing. This one will go here, so like the Vile rewards. I have a Mobalytics, but it's not super up to date with the latest version. It's more so with like the previous versions like this one. And then there's like a filter here as well. So it'll be linked in the comments an hour or two after the video goes live. That being said, let's go ahead and talk about the character. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into a Necropolis. Oh, I can't do Necropolis. Wait, I failed the Iron Citadel. Oh, that's funny. I killed the boss for the fragment and I forgot to do all the rare mobs, so it counted as a fail. This game is strange sometimes. Okay, let's go do Decay. I've got a -11 max crit multi-map here. Okay, so if you haven't watched the previous videos, it's kind of a lot to catch you up with in the current one, so we'll try to do our best to talk about everything. So this is a Freeze Shatter Invoker. I have a video talking all about defensive layers on the character. So the main thing I'm going to be talking about here are two different setups that you will see most people running. So there's a setup for double Herald. So double Herald will imply you're running Herald of Thunder and you're running Herald of Ice. And then there's another setup where you run this ring and you just run Herald of Ice. Now, Herald of Thunder plus Herald of Ice, in my opinion, if set up correctly, does offer some better clear. And the primary reason is the buff you get on killing a shocked enemy from Herald of Thunder makes it so you can sometimes even one-tap rare monsters with just autoing them. This speeds up clear a little bit. I personally think the chaining on the Shatter Freeze is already good enough. I hear you can get the chaining even better on the Herald of Thunder setup, but it's a little tricky because to do that setup, you need to convert your Herald of Thunder to cold and you need to convert your Herald of Ice to lightning. Usually you can do this in two ways. You can use those infusion gems and then you can take, for example, Essence of Mountain and Essence of Storm, and that might be enough with like level 19 Heralds. Otherwise you kind of want Giga Flat damage. Oftentimes people are doing like Breach Ring plus Ingenuity Belt. That's a lot. So this setup I have here on my character, right, you can see everything I'm running here. We'll cover it towards the end. Instead of running Herald of Thunder, I instead run a Cast on Shock setup. So I still have the clear of a like a screen wide, you know, blaster build basically. There's not enough mob density here to do it. But I also still have really good single target in the form of my Eye of Winter setup. Now, the key thing with this is a lot of monks have issues with sustain on single target. Specifically, if you've ever gone to, like, say, Trial of Sekima first floor, that's probably like the first big boss you'll encounter. You'll notice that you'll probably go like trying to fight the boss because he has multi-millions of HP. To alleviate this, we use Soul Thief, which is a support gem you can put on your bell. Now, this makes it so that when you drop your bell, so that would be this Tempest spell here, right? Soul Thief is making it so you are leeching, and with how fast it goes off, you can pretty much out-sustain the MP you are spending. Now, there are other things you can do for this as well. So, like, for general map clear, you could get mana on kill on, like, a ring. You could get it on gloves if you're not using Hawa, which is Hand of Wisdom in action. You can get a jewel with 1% mana on kill. That's pretty much what I ran at the lower levels, just because it was easy to set up. But that does not help with bossing. So speaking of bossing, we have a guy over here Currently running... Actually, I think I forgot to put in the points after I killed Arbiter. Did I forget to put in the points? Map bosses grant bonus XP. Areas of the map bosses have a chance to gain corruption. I think I go this way. Yeah, I forgot to get that. So it's not actually a max difficulty. And then, sure, we do that. But it should be strong enough to, like, make a point, basically. Okay, so you just want to make sure you have charge staff. That allows you to double hit the bell. Then you come across the boss. You want to get your bell down as soon as you can. And you want to aim so you can hit the boss and the bell. And then once that Eye of Winter procs, you basically are just trying to redrop the bell. That's it. So I don't know how much damage that was because I was trying to explain. But essentially, if you looked at my mana, like my flask is full, right? That's all thanks to your Tempest Bell hitting the boss, providing the leech while rapidly going off, right? So that setup is the Cast on Shock setup. Now, the Cast on Shock setup does not really happen too much while mapping, and that's because if you guys remember the big nerf they did to trigger gems, or whatever, meta gems, right? This nerf actually doesn't really affect us. In fact, it buffs us. Why? Because they made it so it's easier to build up magnitude on boss fights, and or energy if you'd like to call it, and it's harder to build it up on, like, say, white monsters, blue monsters, and rares, right? Rares, it's still, like, kind of okay. So this setup works really, really well for bossing. And it's not too hard to shock because you're primarily just hitting the Tempest Bell, and the bell can basically do everything that it needs to do, right? So this setup has worked for me for example, Arbiter, higher Arbiters, it should work just fine. All my map progression. Right here you can see we have a fully unlocked Expedition. I have not tried the Expedition boss on 8 of 8 because he's pretty rippy. Zesht we farmed a bunch of on 8 of 8. And unfortunately, I never spawned the Ritual guy, so it's kind of hard to farm him. And Delirium, don't even get me started there. We're not going to talk about Delirium. Okay, so now that that setup is done, let's go ahead and talk about the gems and a few other things you can use if you want to modify things. So, from the get-go, Meditate. Meditate, I just have Unbreakable, Energy Barrier, Second Wind. Doesn't really matter that much. I pretty much just start a map and then I meditate right away. If you don't want to be a Meditate gamer, you can run Grim Feast, but it's inevitably going to get nerfed, I assume, in the patch. Meditate also feels better for bossing because you can use it in combat. There are alternatives for a weapon swap Meditate, but I don't like that at the moment, only because you have to press 2 buttons. Normally, down here where my head is blocking, there's a section to switch your weapon swap. So if you see, like, Tempest Spell, you can see, let me just remove my webcam, be easier to show. You can see it says, like, use in weapon 1, use in weapon 2. This would imply if you put weapon 2 and you use Tempest Spell, your character will do, like, this little fancy swap, pull out their second weapon, and then Tempest Spell. Once they do that for Meditate, then the play would actually be to grab, I assume, all of your recharge nodes, and then you use a focus here for energy shield recharge rate. This is probably a pretty poopy one. There's a guy on YouTube, I believe, his name is Travik. If you guys want to go check him out, I believe he has, like, probably a deep dive on this, so that is definitely, like, something you could go check out. Okay, going into the next of the gems. Wind Dancer, pretty straightforward. Maim, Wind Wave, Blind, doesn't really matter here. This is primarily for evasion scaling. Quality gives +1 here, so if you look at my Wind Dancer and my evasion, it's currently 11,000. If I were to, say, turn off Wind Dancer, right, my evasion is now 7,300. Wind Dancer is, like, very big, right? Very big. And that was even with 1 stack when I showed it. Tempest Spell, I've got Close Combat, Heft, Overabundance, and Soul Thief. I don't really know what the last link would be. No idea, to be honest. I think Heavy Swing is still an option, since Heavy Swing has to be contributing something since Soul Thief is working. But I truly don't know what I would want here. This is where I have to have, like, the perfect Jeweler's drop to experiment with what I like. Combat Frenzy with Profusion, and then, of course, Resonance for charges. This generates all of our power charges passively. Ghost Dance with Fast Forward. Ghost Dance applies when our ES is below 5k, basically, and then we start recharging or gaining ES back when we get hit. I have a video on defensive layers that covers all about this. The Cast on Shock setup. So I qualityed my Cast on Shock for energy gain. We've got Eye of Winter. I have the lowest level I can support with Chain, Fork, and Impetus. This is for energy gain. I don't know if you actually need this. I just have this for the most consistent setup for bossing. Herald of Ice, this was the first gem I decided to hit level 20, and also I only dropped 120 Spirit Gem, and that's it. So I've got Long Shot, Ambush, Magnified Effect, Innervate. I don't actually know all the links I'm supposed to use here. I forgot. Innervate just gives me more damage while mapping, but does not... I don't really think it affects the Herald of Ice itself, but I very well could be wrong. Yeah, so I definitely need to figure out exactly what I'm doing here. Ice Strike, we've got Inspiration, Tempo, Ice Bite, Conk Effect, and Primal Armament. This is our main clear skill, basically, and what we use to pop the bell and just maneuver from pack to pack. Blink. Blink has Ingenuity, Clarity, and Arcane Tempo. Definitely don't need Clarity. It definitely helps, but you don't need it. And then Charge Staff with Persistence, Culling Strike, Conduction, and Cold Exposure. Now, if you want to run the double Herald setup, and you don't want to run the ring, you can actually drop Blink for Herald of Thunder, and then you objectively have a stronger build. However, you don't have Blink anymore. So I would say this is the trade-off for stronger character versus quality of life. I like Blink a lot for quality of life, especially under scenarios where when you're mapping and you open a breach and there's like a stupid vine and you're trying to get to the other side of the breach, but your character doesn't know how to hop over the vine, and then you rip like, you know, 2,000 monsters in your breach because of that damn vine. With Blink, thankfully, I can just blink over it, right? It's also nice because whenever there's a bunch of on-death effects, like I go in, I smack the rare, kaboom, boom, boom, and then I blink out, so it feels pretty good. All right, as for the gear, I'm just going to go ahead and flash the gear. I'm still using the same item level 60 staff that I got like 2 weeks ago. It's kind of crazy. Pretty much, you're just running Evasion, Energy Shield on everything you can. Body armor is the biggest piece. A lot of people ask where the energy shield comes from. I mean, my body armor and my amulet make up for most of my energy shield here, right? Ingenuity belt would be ideal, but I haven't dropped it in SSF. It's pretty hard. And then the Hand of Wisdom in action is always good on a Dex Int character because we're not trying to stack Dex Int, but even in the like scenario where you do, it just benefits you, right? So you can see the damage it gives to the Ice Strike, for example, is pretty chunky, right? I'd say one of the main things to say here is your helmet should actually be a pure energy shield helmet. You can get very high values of energy shield, and then what you can actually do is you can anoint High Alert, which is located right here, or sorry, Subterfuge Mask, which is here. This will give you a ton of evasion, but more importantly, it'll give you probably another 1,000 energy shield on what I have now, which would be really good because that puts the character close to 6,000. And then, of course, like I said, you anoint this right here, Subterfuge Mask, and then you're going to get all of the evasion, right, based off of the energy shield of the helm. I think it's probably better to run hybrid in every other spot. So like Wax Jacket would be the best base. I think Threaded Boots could be right here. Actually, don't know if that's... Yeah, I think so. Hand of Wisdom in action is obviously not that much, yes, evasion, but very good for damage. And the passive tree, I don't think has really changed much at all. It's pretty much the same passive tree, even though I've done some slight, you know, changes here and there. Yeah, a big thing I get a lot of people asking, like, when do you stop going crit and scale crit damage? I want to say the answer is, like, the game tells you, right? So here's a 10% crit chance node, and here's a 15 crit damage node. Before going for these, you want to fill out these here, because these are 12s and 18s versus 10 and 15. You can hold shift. So if you look, it says, for example, normal strikes goes to 64.3. And then this puts it to 64.4. So according to this, it's better for me to take crit damage. But maybe the next level, it would be better to take crit chance, right? So I've kind of just been using that to balance it. Not the most accurate, but pretty accurate, I would say. I have 47 crit chance on Ice Strike, and that's before being in combat. I do believe the Ice Strike bounces up to about 180k. Not 100% sure, because, I mean, who's, like, running around with their tooltips open, right? Every time I blink, it closes it, so it's kind of weird. Anyway, I think that pretty much covers everything that I could possibly show you guys. Remember, if there's some info missing, I promise it's clarified in the previous videos, such as, like, leveling. I went this route first. Then there's the whole, like, ascendancy discussion. I personally really like running Sunder my enemies, and I noticed that when I took Heavy Frost, I immediately had better Herald chains, so that's the reason why I run them. Even though they're a bit redundant with each other, 20% freeze buildup is like okay for a point, so I think that this is very much valid. And And then the 50% increased damage on thin ice is actually really good because my burst window is during a freeze, right? That's when I get the most amount of hits off. So I think thin ice is actually very, very good. This is also coming in after CI has gotten fixed. CI used to be double dipping, so it was getting bonus on low life and full life. So now the character is in like the most, like, I'm not going to say the most ethical form it could be in because it's probably getting nerfed in the patch, but it's definitely not abusing anything, right? So there's that as well. Last thing I'll say for mana, remember that Deep Trance has reduced cost of skills. And then you can see conservative casting here. You can take reduced cost of mana. And then the last thing to cover would be the jewels, and then we're done. One red jewel with rage on hit is pretty good. And then any modifiers that scale your build, so like melee damage, elemental damage, are good. Over here, right, I have a jewel with elemental damage, bonus damage with hits against rare and unique enemies. Over here, we have a gain 10% of maximum energy shield as stun threshold. I think this helps a lot without, like, to not get chain stunned. I personally don't really notice myself getting stunned very often. It's very infrequent, and that's why I haven't opted out to grab, say, the nodes over here for stun threshold. This one also has like area damage and elemental damage. Down over here, I have a 20% energy shield jewel with cold damage and some mana regen, and that's pretty much about it. My charm, I always run a freeze charm just because it's really annoying getting frozen. And even though I'm CI and I get frozen by most things, I don't really get hit that often from the evasion. So really the only thing I notice freezing me are those damn shades, the Prowler shades. I don't know what they're called, but I'm sure everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about once I say those shades. Anyway, we're going to continue playing this character. Like I said before, I had a Lightning Mercenary, but that's not the video for it. I want to play this character until I craft a better ES helm, make that swap, and then hopefully at some point get a better weapon, but that one's proving to be really hard to get. Anyway, that's pretty much about it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Remember, if you liked the video, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget, you can catch me streaming live every day but Sundays at twitch.tv/Pohx. See you guys all tomorrow.